Today is going to be the final episode from a project that we started back in 24. We started in 24 trying to see if we could cure hams and bacons in Alaska. So back in Pennsylvania, where we lived 3 years ago, I used to cure hams and bacons every year. We raised our own hogs and kind of had fine-tuned it pretty good. But then we got up here, didn't have a smokehouse yet. Last year I finally said, we got to do it. So we bought a pig, and it got closer to time when we were going to have to take the pig, and I still didn't have my smokehouse. So I took a day off of work and I started building this smokehouse, and we didn't get the floor concreted yet, but got everything else and had it up in time to do our hams and bacon. So these two hams here are from our pig. This is my friend up here from 40% Ranch. That's his ham. And then here's two shoulders from my friend, learned to know after I moved up here. He also comes from Pennsylvania. And they had bought a pig and wanted to have what they thought they were hams that they had saved out, but they're actually front shoulders. So anyway, they all had bacons as well. And the bacons we had took off, and I videotaped that, a little bit of us slicing those and frying that up earlier, and I'll put that at the end of this video. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things we learned doing it here in Alaska and how different it is. One of the big differences that I found up here is that meat dehydrates a lot faster here than like in Pennsylvania. And there's water laying everywhere up here, but somehow it's drier in certain ways as far as things drying out. And so I think that really makes sense when you think the grass up here grows really tall, but in 1 year it's so dry, and fire hazards and stuff become from that. So it has to do something with it being drier in certain ways. I don't understand relative humidity and all that very well. So what we ran into with the bacons is that they didn't cure as long as I typically would cure them, but they were drying out. And so when I sliced them, what I found is that the flavor was good, but the meat part of it, the fat was fine, because the fat can continue to dehydrate for quite a long time and it still tastes basically the same. But the meat dehydrated to the point of it being like jerky almost, instead of it being just that cured, more moist texture. So I think what I'm going to have to do is get the smoking done earlier. First of all, I went into the smokehouse too late in the year because we were not, didn't have the smokehouse built and we're pushing things off. So ideally, I'm going to be trying to get into the smokehouse much earlier in the fall, or in the winter at least, like late fall or mid-fall. September would be great. And then get the good smokes, get everything smoked the way we want. And then I think I'll bring them in and put them in my cold cellar, which by next year should be working fine. I have a cold cellar under our Arctic entry in the basement. It's just a little entry. It's about a 10 by 10, and we put a basement under that as well for a cold cellar, for a cold cellar. The back half of our house is going to be unheated, and then that Arctic entry is at the back of that yet, so it'll be even colder. But it'll be moist, it'll be damp, and that will help it not to dehydrate so much and let it have more time to cure, which the proper amount of curing is important for the good flavor. And so the way we do it, I'll just do a quick rundown. The way I do it is a dry cure. It's not a wet cure, it's a dry cure. So we butcher over there in the smokehouse, the butcher house. We bring it over here. I lay them on this table here. This is a slanted table, and I put a natural salt on it. We get the salt. The one I use is Redmond's, I believe. It comes out of a salt deposit in Utah, I believe, and they make it for cattle and for human consumption, feeds and stuff. Anyway, coat it completely, no open spaces. If depending how you take your hams off and stuff, you got to be careful that you get the salt into the joint and all that. It sits here. The bacons get covered with salt and layered. They can be stacked if you have a bunch of them. But every day you got to come in here and flip those bacons, because the water starts to pull out and it sits in them, and it does the best job if you just flip them. Make sure by the next day you cover any areas that look like they don't have any salt. The first while is very important. Also, the thing I was struggling with is the cold, because we were doing it too late, and I had a problem with them freezing before the salt got all the way to the center. And I didn't lose any because of it. We had to actually use this thing here and run a smoke fire from inside and warm it up in here, so the salt had time to work its way to the center. It was kind of a mess and a fiasco that way. But anyway, the slanted table helps the water the water to run off, that it keeps pulling the water out of the meat. So bacons, it depends on how thick they are. These were fairly thin, so maybe about 6 days, 5 days, to when you really feel like the salt's really got through it. Then you wash them off, and then I coat them with paprika, red pepper, black pepper. Actually, I wash them off and then dry them off and then coat them with maple syrup and then put the peppers on it. Then we put them on a meat hook, bacon hooks like this, and we hang them up and smoke them. And however hard you want them to smoke. This is a cold smoke. I don't have any heat in here. The only time I put some heat in here was just so that it would get above freezing, but it wasn't anywhere close to 60 degrees or 70 degrees even in here. So we put the fire out there, the smoke comes in, and the slats let the smoke back out again. Maybe someday I'll put slats over it, makes it a little bit more efficient. Maybe it wouldn't dry out so bad too in here. But anyway, then so about 5 days, 6 days on the bacons, depending on how thick they are. If they're great big, maybe 7 days. Wash the salt off, do the maple syrup, the peppers, hang them. The hams will continue on. If you do shoulders, it's the same way. It'll continue on for another week. So about 2 weeks on something big like this with a bone in it. Then you do the same thing. Wash it off, maple syrup, salt it, put the peppers all over it. And with these, we bagged it. So I wrapped these with string. I tied them real tight, and that's how much they shrank. You can see how loose those strings are. These were tight when this went together. But I wanted to keep the shape a little bit, so it'd be nice to slice it off, because that's the shoulder. So you want to slice them this way to slice it properly for the grain. The hams would slice this way, so they're set up nice like that. And then you smoke them, and they're going to have to smoke them a lot more. I got to smoke them a lot more times. You can start smoking them when they're at the salt. Like I often will start a smoke fire. The bacons are hanging. The hams are still here. I'll be running smoke fires. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Up here, we don't have the problem with the little flies and all the things that we have, the bugs that we have trouble with back in Pennsylvania. So that's a good thing here. But the dehydration is substantial. I'm almost seeing the dehydration here in about 6 months. That's about how long these were hanging, about 6 or 7 months. About 6 months. And it looks like about what it did after 2 years in Pennsylvania. And I already did them for 3 years. They were a little bit smaller than this after 3 years. And they were still bright red inside when I sliced them. It's amazing. But the problem is keeping the bugs out of them in Pennsylvania. So a cold cellar was always the hope back there, to finally get a cold cellar where we could hang them, where they were cool and damp and they could continue curing. And so that's gonna help us out a lot here for different reasons in Pennsylvania, but it's gonna help us out. So we're gonna try that this year, get into it a little bit earlier. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna run some footage of us slicing the bacons and all that. But this bacon has no man-made nitrates or nitrates in it. It's all natural, other than brown sugar. The salt, that's true. One thing I did forget to say is I mix my salt 50-50 with brown sugar when I apply it. That takes the harshness away, adds some sweetness. The sugar actually helps with the curing and preservation as well. So 50-50 on the salt, whatever salt you use. Don't use kosher salt, and I wouldn't use iodized salt. Some people do. That's the process, and we'll run some footage of what it looked like after we're done.